Hey, welcome to our second to last class, our penultimate class. Penultimate, second to the last of something. We've learned a lot this semester. I learned to always use my mic. Thanks to Riley for that, complaining about me using my phone. And so we're wrapping up. I'm going to have a short lecture today, a short lecture tomorrow. I'm going to be wearing the same shirt in both because I'm about to do them both right now because I'm about to get on an airplane and leave town. So I'm going to get these recorded together before I leave town, and I knew I couldn't get away with it because look at this shirt. There are literally thousands of double T's on the shirt. Got it for my birthday, which is later this week, and so I decided to wear it here on my last day at the office before I head out of town for a few days. So check your scores. I'm going to keep telling you that. So I'm trying to keep up to date, and I'm going to post something that help you with your spotting boards. Remember, I'm not really looking for a perfect spotting board. I'm just looking for how you might remember how things are happening. Why do I always get a call during class? I'm going to pause. All right, phone calls during the middle of class. So let's go. Let's wrap this. We're going to be short these next 2 days because I want you guys to concentrate on your. I want you guys to concentrate on your class, on your final project, which will be very easy. Again, you should get. You should really get a great grade on your final project. So don't be, if you're worried about it, do not be worried. It's going to be great. Hopefully by the end of this, hopefully by my class next summer session, I'll be able to really kill this slideshow thing. All right, so today's June 29th. Sometimes when I do an online class, I take out old video from a previous semester and I use it. I'm not doing that this semester. Everything's fresh. Everything's new. So one thing that we've missed on all this that we've been talking about is a lot of times you'll have pre and post game responsibilities. So there's going to be some test questions that aren't on the slides that I'm just telling you. So hopefully you're listening. But radio generally requires more work pre and post game. Setup, generally you don't have much help on radio. Generally on radio, you have a 15 to 30, sometimes an hour. Texas Tech football has an hour pregame show. When you on radio, when you watch on television, generally they go to the location. There's like a 3-minute hit or something, and then they go into the game. So generally radio requires more work pre and post game. Radio generally always has a post game show. Football generally will toss to a studio show or something like that, or television rather, not football. Television will toss to a studio show or something like that. So television is a lot easier to do than radio. But when you're doing that, you've got to remember, you're going to have interviews, you're going to have game recaps, how the points runs were scored, et cetera. So I always, when I do a radio post-game baseball game, generally I have 4 segments. So my first segment, I do just a brief little recap of what happened, go to break, come back, do how the runs were scored. Previously, the other one I might have said, hey, Tech scored 5 runs on 13 hits. There was 2 errors. TCU scored 4 runs on 8 hits and an error. Here's the pitcher that won. Here's the pitcher got the save. Here's the loser. Here's the time of game. Just kind of get the basics. Then I come back, segment 2, and I will do how we got there and do a recap of how the runs were scored. And generally, you might actually even play your play-by-play, like a clip from your play-by-play when the run was scored. Then come back and maybe do an interview or something like that, or a player of a game, and then wrap up with just a little short segment again, recapping everything. What's next? Move on. So you've got that. That's generally what happens on a radio post-game show. Football, again, I keep saying football. Television, it's a little bit different because you might have an interview or something that you do with a player on the field, but that's about it. So on the pregame interview, let's say it's the first game of the season. You want to review the offseason. If it's the first game, just, hey, what you guys work on in the offseason? What were some of the things that you stressed? What are some of the things? Where did you get better? Do that if it's the first game. If you're in the middle of the season, you can generally recap the previous game. What happened last week against Texas? Talk about uh, what you've done with your offense since the loss against Oklahoma, whatever. Just go through that. And then you can always get the, what are you working on? What have you guys been working on? What was something that you really stressed this week? You individually, if you're a player, you as a team, those are great questions. Coaches, you can ask about injured players. Generally, especially in college, they're not going to talk about it. I never ask a player about another player's health or anything like that. Talk about tonight's scout, which is the opponent. What do you know about the opponent? What should we look for from tonight's opponent? Who to look for? Who are some of the key players? When I do baseball, we generally look at two opposing players rather. Same for basketball or football might be a little bit different. Basketball, you concentrate on a couple players, and then just anything else that might be relevant that you can throw in there in the stew, and you make it up, and that's your pregame interview. Try to keep them about 3 to 4 minutes in length. Postgame interview, again, you want to keep notes during the game so you don't forget to ask a question, especially if you know you're going to have a coach every game. You can ask about the team. You can ask about an individual player. If you're talking to an individual player and you had a teammate that really went off and had a great game, you can ask about that. You can ask about somebody on the other team, those type of things. Talk about turning points or big plays in the game. I think back to when Texas Tech played Stanford on that second game. I believe it was the bottom of the fifth inning. Stanford was ahead, I believe, 4-0. Might be wrong. I'm just going off memory now. Texas Tech's first two batters of that inning walked and hit by pitch. So you had runners at first and second, nobody out. Now you're thinking, okay, here we go. And then the next three batters struck out, didn't score any runs. I felt like that was the turning point of the game. And so I probably would have asked Tadlock or somebody about that. Strategies. Why do you employ the shift? Why do you go to a zone defense? Why didn't you blitz more? Why didn't you go change the quarterback earlier in the game? Those type of things. And then what's next? What's next for the team? What's next for you as an individual? Whatever. Those things. Those are just things that go in to a post-game interview. Again, the same thing. Try to keep it long. If you've just lost, if the team has lost, you probably don't want to go as long with the coach of the players because, no one wants to sit there and no one ever wants to sit there and do the interview, but especially after you just lost. So other things, as we finish up, we've given you lots of tips and keys as we've gone through the semester. Always be listening and steal it and write it down so you don't forget it. So count leverage. Remember, I stole that from Eric Nadel of the Texas Rangers. Mark Fichtner, who used to call Tech baseball, would go, hello, victory column, hello, win column. And he stole that. So just again, steal it. If you hear it from somebody else, nothing's ever original. Steal it and take it for yourself. The one thing, especially new broadcasters forget, is you've got so much information. You want to share it all. This happens on talk shows too. You've got so much ready for the show. You want to share it all. You got to be patient and take your time. Don't use it all. Save some for the game. Remember, your 3-hour football game, 4-hour baseball game, 2-hour basketball game, there's going to be time to fit some things in. It's always good when you're getting ready to be prepared early, so you've got some time before the game. I always like to, again, I'm going to go back to baseball. When I do baseball, I like to have everything done about 10 to 15 minutes early. Go to the bathroom, get a drink. Try not to drink carbonated drinks because sometimes it makes you have to burp during the air when you're on the air. Just be prepared, just rested and ready to go when it's time to go. And then always just be relaxed. Don't be tense. Haney talked about smiling when you talk just be relaxed. It's a great job. It's a great gig. You're calling play-by-play. Be relaxed. And then again, you can't be somebody else. You can pattern yourself after somebody else. You can steal things from somebody else, but you're yourself. You've got to be yourself. And so always remember that. I think I kept that one from yesterday. Yes. First time you're calling a new sport. So if you get a new sport, one time I got asked, hey, you want to do volleyball? Never done volleyball before, but I didn't want to miss it. So yes, I'll do volleyball. Study others. So first thing I did when I got a volleyball gig was I watched other volleyball games, watched matches to know. And that also helps you listen to the ebb and flow of how you do a broadcast, how early on, how the announcer is, how the play-by-play person is. Just kind of gives you a sense of urgency of where you want to put your emphasis early, middle, late in a game. Again, some of that's common sense, but you just want to be prepared for it and know that. So it's good to do that. But before I called baseball, I spent a whole summer watching Major League Baseball and college games on Fox Sports that were replays, and watched all those just to listen to say, again, I'm not going to get jacked up if somebody hits a home run on the first inning versus if they hit it in the ninth inning to win a game, or case earlier this year, three games, 3 home runs back to back in the bottom of the 10th to win a game. If you're calling a new sport, seek advice. You can talk to other broadcasters, other play-by-play guys. Hey, what do you do? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? Those things. And again, talk to coaches. Coaches want to share. They want to give you the information, especially if you do it early enough in the year. You don't want to do it the night before the game. They've got a big game tomorrow and you go, hey, give me some advice on calling your sport. No, don't do that. But if they start in September, you can call them in June and July. You can get those things, get those things done. We talked about this yesterday. Know the rosters. Gave you 3 things yesterday and about knowing the rosters. Just there's different memory devices you can use. And so a lot of the things that you, as you're calling it, volleyball is a great example, especially volleyball on television. If you just know the players, the rest of it just kind of flows along. And I don't like it when somebody says number 13 with the kill or whatever, know the names, know the numbers, but do you use the different devices for that? Just know the terminology, learn the basics. What are the basic things you have to know? I mean, if you're calling baseball, you have to know the scoring system. You have to know why everyone's always trying to call me. You have to know the scoring system. You have to know basic things. You have to know what a ground rule double is. You have to know what infield fly is. You need to know that a can of corn is a routine fly ball. Why is it called a can of corn? Because way back in early days, people would go to the grocery store and the grocer would help you out. And so sometimes the corn was on the top shelf and he would knock it with something and he would catch it in his apron when it flew down. So it popped down into his apron easily, like a routine fly ball, can of corn. So learn the basics. People can tell if you don't know what you're talking about. People can tell. So learn enough to get by. And if nothing else, Google that. In there a term for that? Google that something? Google it. Google volleyball terminology, baseball terminology, those things. It helps. Talked about this earlier. Know the rules. If you don't have a rule book, get a rule book. Ask people. I always ask. I've got a great umpire contact that after a game or something, I'll say, hey, what was the deal there? Explain that to me. And then again, Google it if you don't know it. So those are things that can help you. And then last thing, you're sick of this, be prepared. I talked about this. If you take nothing else from this semester, be prepared when you're a broadcaster, be prepared for your radio show, if you host one, or your podcast, if you host one, or your game, if you're doing a game. Those are the things that set people apart. So be prepared. Remember those things, and remember that different things all go into it. But if you're prepared, you're going to be nervous. But if you're prepared, it's half the battle. It's even worse if you're nervous and you don't know what the heck you're doing. There's been 1 or 2 times, because I do have a real job, and I got asked this question earlier in the year. Why did I stop doing baseball? I got to the point a couple times last year, I went and told my Gus, my partner, my broadcast partner, when I'd go in the booth, I'd say, this may be the least prepared I've ever been for a game. And that's not a good feeling. You want to always be prepared and know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. Again, you'll be the first person to know, and the viewers, listeners will be the second. You can't fool them. So that's it for today's lesson. We're going to have a real quick tomorrow, final, hey, feel good little We never talked about emotional intelligence this semester. That's something that's really big to me, but I'm really big on emotional intelligence. We're not going to get to that. So hopefully if you're taking my sports PR class in second summer session, or I think I'm doing sports communications in the fall. I think we'll talk about more about emotional intelligence then. But work on your project. Email me if you have any questions. Again, I'm gonna be traveling some tomorrow, which is Wednesday. But I'll get to your questions if you have them. All right, thanks. Get to your stuff.